So it's been about 7 years since I have had to make one of the hardest decisions of my life, and that was to put my first dog that I had by myself, Buddy. I had to put him down. Buddy came into my life in one of the weirdest ways. My mom had been on Craigslist looking up farm equipment and had seen somebody was selling this dog for like $20 under farm equipment. And she was like, that's super weird. So she shows up, meets the dog, decides to call him Buddy, and realizes that this is like a hoarding situation that Buddy is in. So she pays the money, brings Buddy home, and then contacts the proper authorities. Well, it became really apparent very quickly with Buddy that he was the sweetest, kindest, most lovable dog in the world. But he had suffered from some extreme neglect and what became apparent, some physical abuse as well. His tail permanently had a kink in it. His nose had been broken at one point in time. And you'd think with all of this abuse and this, that, he'd be fearful of people or he'd be guarded. And he just loved people. He would get so excited anytime he saw anybody. He'd see a cat, he'd see a dog, he'd see a person. He'd be like, that's the greatest moment of my life. And it was just so beautiful to get to witness that with him. And my mom then was also trying to find another home for Buddy then, because she just basically was like, I need to get him out of this situation, but didn't have room in the home for another dog. We had our dogs, Hunter and Maggie, and cats and kids and foreign exchange students that she was homing. And, she's trying to find this new home for him, but she's being very picky because she was like, he's the sweetest dog in the world and he needs a family who's going to love him. Well, around that time, I'd met Buddy a couple times and he was very sweet, very loving. I had started my first job out in this super small town. There was only 600 people. And it was super isolating and lonely because I, had moved there with this great idea of what I thought a small town living was going to be. I was like, it's going to be so charming. And then I quickly found out it's not super charming because one time the grocery store in town ran out of eggs and I was like, what do I do? And they're like, well, you just wait later for eggs. And I was like, I grew up in the Twin Cities, okay? That's not an answer I need, which is very sassy and it was what it is. But it was just a hard place to live and very lonely and isolating. And I ended up only living there for a year. But during this time, my mom got in my head about safety. You're a single woman living alone and everyone knows you're single in the town. And I was like, ooh, that is super true because it is a very small town and everyone knows I live alone. So on the spur of a moment, when I was home visiting, I was like, you know what? I'll just take Buddy. So loaded him up in the car, drove along. We stopped in Petco together, bought all the dog stuff I needed, and brought him home with me. And that quickly became a very stressful situation because I hadn't realized how much Buddy had never been an inside dog. I had to potty train him. I had to help him figure out he could eat. If he didn't have enough food in his dish, he would not eat. So I literally had buckets full of food and water all over my house so he felt secure enough to eat. And even, oh my gosh, with the potty training too, it was actually really cute and hilarious. Trying to get him to understand he needs to go bathroom outside. We'd have moments where he would, any of the plants I had inside the house, he'd mark it, as well as he would also pee in my cat's litter box all the time. And Miriam is now getting very upset because she's like, how dare you talk about another dog with me right here? So I'm just going to deal with her really quick and then I'm going to come back to this story. Miriam has been settled, so the crisis is averted. Anyway, so, I had this new dog. It was the first dog I kind of had on my own, and realizing all of these, things that were going on with this dog that I was like, I don't think I'm prepared for this. Or I was just so overwhelmed and I was just in this place, but I ended up with Buddy forming one of my favorite relationships that I've had in my whole life. With trying to, potty train him outside, we would go for walks and we would walk for hours. And, realizing there were a lot of firsts that he had, the first time he realized he could sit on the couch with me, or the first time, he was kind of realizing he'd destroyed a couch cushion. And I walked in and, you know, first thing I was very stern. I was like, Buddy! And he immediately flattened to the ground, peed himself, and just started crying. And, you know, so I ran over and I was just, you know, being gentle and petting him. And that moment he realized I wasn't going to hurt him. And he radically changed my life, and he helped me get out of this period of isolation I was with, where I was living. And finally I was like, you know what, I'm gonna move back to the cities. You know, I had to find an apartment that was gonna be perfect for me and Buddy. And I was finding, you know, even this apartment with a friend of mine, and she was gonna move in, so more help for him. And it was so great because we moved into a South Minneapolis apartment. And before, when we would go on our walks, you know, we're in the middle of nowhere walking. So like we'd never run into anybody. And in South Minneapolis, like there's so many people. It's such a bustling, vibrant community. And we're walking around, and Buddy started getting his little fan club of people because like he loved people and he loved other animals. And he constantly just be like, it's you, I'm so excited. And, you know, we'd have particular stops in our walks because he'd have to visit with his friends. And he'd have to visit, you know, with his, like animal friends. And it was really good for me and for him. And one of my favorite things, because every morning and every afternoon and every evening we'd take our walks. Well, one of the things too with Buddy is that it was hard, like he hadn't had a lot of medical care, and it was hard trying to figure out how old he was. It was hard trying to figure out like what shots he did and didn't have. So he and I, you know, we were in and out of the vet quite a bit, you know, trying to figure some of this stuff out. And one of the visits in, his paw hadn't been doing good. And I was, you know, worried about that. Like I said, we would do these things. And that was, you know, when they came out with the news. And I think for any situation when somebody comes out and they're like, hey, they have cancer, I just sat there and was like, I need you to exit the room, dear vet, because I'm about to break down and I need to do this. And then I'm going to call you back in and we're going to talk about options. And she was like, perfect. So laid on the floor, holding Buddy, sobbed for like 10, 15 minutes, called him back in, and we came up with some plans. But unfortunately, with the type of cancer he had, it was bone cancer, and where it was, and honestly just who Buddy was, there wasn't a lot of options for how we can help him. And I tried stuff for months, like holistic stuff, acupuncture, on. And finally, one of the only solutions they had for me is they were like, well, you could amputate his leg, and that could give him another maybe 6 or 4 months with the cancer. And Buddy had been through so much in his life. I sat in prayer with that for the longest time, trying to figure out, like, what am I supposed to do? Like, what is my responsibility as an owner of making sure that, you know, my pet has such a happy, fulfilling life? And can I provide this to him? And really working with the vet and, you know, anybody who'd known Buddy, and it just finally came to that realization that the best way for me to love him was to let him go. And I was there with him as he went. And I was just so thankful for him and the way he loved me, the way he taught me to love better. And it's always hard going home after a loss and looking at all the places that they're supposed to be and they're not. He was such a good boy. After that, I knew, you know, my heart needed to heal and it needed to be in, you know, these different place emotionally before I could ever even think about getting, you know, another dog, and, you know, even financially as well, because I would have spent twice the amount, but it was not cheap. Holy cannoli. Helping Buddy, it was not cheap. So I was like, I need to save up money, I need this, that, and the other thing, and, you know, I, you know, just sat with it of like, am I at a place where I can, you know, get another dog? Um, I had added my 3 cats, you know, Callie, Carl, and Lord Marmalade. And my roommate had moved out, you know, I was in this apartment by myself, and I was like, am I going to be the best home for a pet, for a dog specifically? And, am I healed enough to do that? Well, I was on retreat actually with all my high schoolers. And, you know, it was, you know, later in the summer, it was July, and I was on this retreat, and, you know, I was just really taking it to prayer, because there was so much that I missed about having a companion that's a dog, like as my walks, going on those, or, you know, every morning getting that cold nose in your face and just so excited, and the routine of having a dog companion I was really missing. And, you know, once again, cats are great, but if I were to try to put like Carl on a leash and take him for a walk, like, he would call Sarah McLachlan on me. He'd be like, are you insane? Hold on, I gotta go and deal with Miriam, because she's like, wait a second, I smell tears. Hold on. Got her all settled upstairs with a bone, and some extra snuggles. But, so I finally decided that my heart had healed enough and I was ready, to go ahead and get another dog. And I decided really early on that I was like, okay, so Buddy was amazing and beautiful and wonderful, but he was also a ton of work when I first got him, because like he, you know, was like an 80-pound dog and had no clue. Like I said, he wasn't potty trained. He didn't know how to be in the house. It was this, that, and the other thing, and there was just so much. And even more so, I'd only gotten to have him for 3 or 4 years in my life, and I wanted more time. So I decided, I was like, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to get myself like a little puppy. And I decided I was going to get like a bulldog breed, because I was like, oh, it's a hardy, really good breed, rah, 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 tough dog. So, you know, I started looking across the Humane Society and things like that, and just waiting for the perfect moment, because Buddy had come into my life in such a different, unusual way. I didn't want to force anything. Well, one day, you know, I went and I looked on really quick to the Humane Society website, and they were like, we just got all these little American Bulldog puppies in. And I was like, oh my gosh, what? And one of the puppies' names was Pickles, and I love pickles. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go look. I'm gonna see if I vibe. So I show up to the Humane Society, and they're like, ooh, sorry, Pickles just got adopted. And I was like, blah. But they said, we have, you know, her brothers and sisters still here, and you want to go check them out. I was like, okay. And I, you know, I look in and I see the little puppies playing, except for one puppy who's just kind of by herself, you know, just kind of like looking around, very sweet, very quiet. And I was like, I want to check that one out. So bring her into the room with me, and I hold her in that moment where I was like, and my heart is healed and has grown by 15 times. Oh my gosh. I just knew. I was like, this is my dog. And her original name was Ava, but I had owned a cat by the name of Ava. So I was like, we can't do copies. So I looked at her and her little old lady scrunchy, you know, bulldog face, and I was like, yeah, her name's Miriam. So I did the paperwork, called everybody up, and was like, yep, you know, I just went to look, and they're like, you totally got a puppy, didn't you? And I was like, yeah, I did. So I brought Miriam home. And one of the, you know, running gags in our family that everybody does like to say to me, though, is the fact that they're like, do you remember how you got that American Bulldog, very hardy breed? Because for as much as I said, you know, with Buddy, you know, all the work I had to do, this, that, and the other thing, I think it's an infinite little cosmic joke that I deeply enjoy, that I was given another dog that needed some special love and attention, because I myself also needed a bunch of special love and attention too. Okay, hold on. She is like by the door now. Hold on. So family's like, oh my gosh, remember how you got like this really like hardy dog, because, you know, Buddy had come with some of his issues and blah, blah. It's like, yeah, because here's the thing about Miriam. Didn't realize when I adopted her that she's deaf. So I had to go to a bunch of training classes and all these different things and adjust a lot of my life to accommodate for a deaf dog. And then Miriam needed knee surgery because the ligaments in her knees weren't growing correctly. So then we had to go through that whole process. Then right after she got healed from getting, her knee surgery, she broke her leg. So we had to deal with that. Also found out that her skin is so delicate, I have to constantly slather her up in sunscreen and give her like little sweaters and stuff so she doesn't get like sunburned. And then like this was the weirdest experience of my life. The vet was like, "Hey, did you know that your dog has a recessed vulva?" And I was like, "No, what does that even mean?" And like I'm trying to figure out if I need to like censor this for like the YouTube or whatever, but like they're like, "Yeah, it's like recessed and weird." And I was like, okay, cool. I mean, why not? And like, thanks, thanks for telling me. So, we're dealing with that. And she also has this thing where she's continually growing mast cell tumors now that she's older and they are cancerous. And, the first time they were telling me, they're like, just so you know, I was like, oh, I've been here before. My heart's about to get shattered. And now, like, she's had like 8 taken out now. But we always kind of joke with her. We're like, do you remember how you wanted that easy, hardy dog? And, there's Miriam, who also is the fussiest little peanut in the world of just like, she's like, I'm a delicate tiny angel baby. I cannot be tough. I am delicate. All in all to say, I always kind of, think of this around this time of year about how you never know what you're really gonna get with any aspect of your life, but I always think of that when it comes to, the animals that have entered my life. As my other cat just decides, he's like, oh, hey, I'm just gonna like rustle up stuff in the background to see you're trying to do something. There he is. But yeah, this is the time of year where I kind of think of stuff, and I just thought I'd share the story. So I hope you have a great day. I'll talk to you later. Bye.